Hey everybody, I'm Mike, and this is AIT Drone. Hey everyone. Alright guys, welcome back to the AIT offices, and we're going to call this episode At the Owner's Chair. So we're going to be going through some of our old video clips and maybe a couple new ones. In this one, you're going to see how we use thermal imaging, what it actually looks like when we use thermal imaging and overlay it on standard imaging. We had some other videos concerning the same thing. However, they got a little messy, a little out of focus due to our camera work being in a hurry. So today we're going to try to go through some of those. You see them playing the old videos on the background here. You can also see that we have samples of these are actual samples of reports for schools, hospitals, and a few others that we have. They lay out kind of the same way. So we got a little bit better microphone here today. We're trying out the Blue Yeti microphone to see if it cuts down on the noise of the traffic outside. And as you can always see at my desk, it's a mess. There's a million things going on, but I hope you enjoy it and stay tuned for the whole thing. Please like and subscribe. Share our videos as much as you can. We're going to try to get as much information out to everybody as we can. All right? Stick with us. All right, guys, so this is a recap of one of the previous videos we did, and I believe it was a 70,000 square foot facility, and it was multiple buildings, but we're going to go into, this one showed clear damage on the surface. So as you flew over, you could see there had been water pooling, there had been, it had been building up dirt and mold, mildew, all of that. Up here, we actually even had hail impacts on our Ultra HD image. You can see the impacts to the tin up here. Then on the edges here, you can see where you're getting wrinkling on the surface layer. That's always an issue down in here as well. But I want to show you the difference. Here's some more hail impacts of what you can see using thermal imaging and properly setting up your thermal imager. So it totally depends on the time of day, the air moisture level, the temperature, and direct sunlight, and then the type of material that you're investigating. So on this, we had mostly EPDM roofing. It's got a rubber type layer on the surface. We won't go too much into the construction because that's a whole nother field, but I just want to show you how we locate severe damage. So on this, if you had a standard inspection where you had somebody walking around on the roof, or you even hired a drone team to come out and do just standard photography, they're going to fly over this, and that's what they're going to see. For the most part, it depends on whether they have a construction background or not, whether they're going to understand that these are hail impacts, and whether they're going to understand the possible causes behind wrinkling on the surface layers. However, what we're actually looking for is we're noting all of that. We report on all of that. You can see in some of our other videos the type of equipment that we use and everything. But I want to actually show you when we overlay a drone thermal shot and a standard shot, this is what you're going to see. Now, as we start to bring in the thermal image, you're going to see that surface layer start to disappear. And now what you're seeing is actual damage beneath the surface, not just visually what's on top, but damage beneath the surface, from compressions to actual moisture. So we've got these almost exactly lined up with each other. And as we come in, now you see that all these areas that look just terrible because they were holding moisture, those technically are not the worst areas. The worst areas are actually surrounding this HVAC unit over here. We've got a few impact points, most likely from hail, to an old roof that damaged that surface layer and caused moisture to build up right in here. But this whole area that looked just terrible is not actually that bad. Now coming around this HVAC unit, on the other hand, we've got actual impacts you can pick up because the subsurface layers are so soft from moisture and possibly mold and everything else, that you can actually pick up the impacts where it compacted the material. And as you've seen in some of our training videos, possibly, what we're actually reading is the thermal emissivity of that material. So how the heat radiates through that material, and when you compact it, you change how that the heat travels through and out of that material, and we're able to see those differences down to a very, very small amount. So obviously moisture shows up differently than everything else. Here we're actually showing up cooler, and like I said, it depends on the time of day whether that moisture is going to be hotter or colder. There's times when it's been sitting in the sunlight all day, and then you get into nighttime where it's actually going to show up colder. But you can see here, I'm going to draw this back out so you can see the difference when you're just walking around looking for damage, what you're going to see, and when you actually do a high level thermal and infrared inspection. So we're picking up things many layers beneath the surface. We're going to get all that stuff that's on top, just like you would walking around up there, only we're not going to cause damage, and we're going to be able to see down through all the way to the structural layers. So again, you can see the surface layer damage is not actually where the most severe damage is located. And most likely all the moisture that's built up around this HVAC unit underneath, possibly from poor installation, could be from damage, whatever. All that moisture that's collecting in here is causing the surface layer damage. So we're going to go on to the next one now. This is that same area from another angle. As you can see, we can actually check the temperature of the motor on this HVAC unit. We do quite a few different inspections, but strictly speaking, on roofing inspections, if you're a facility manager or maintenance manager, or as in this case, it was an engineering and roofing construction company that hired us to come out to locate all the damage beneath the surface. So not only did they not have to go up on the roof, they were able to locate all these high moisture areas without ever being up there. So it totally changes the way that you do inspections and the way that you bid a job. And if when you're talking about facility management for the school districts and hospitals and everything that we work with, they know before they ever contact a construction company where the problems are and how bad they are. So we're going to go on to the next one now. So here you're seeing kind of the same thing as that last roof. You're seeing where a lot of moisture has sat for a long time and dirt and everything else has gotten onto it. There's actually even little plants growing on it right here, which actually happens more than you would think. But we're going to bring in the thermal image now. Oops, got to click on it first. There we go. All right, now as we bring in the thermal image, you're going to see the same thing. Look at all that moisture damage all the way out to here where nothing on the surface, nothing would tell you that this area or this area is damaged. Now in our Ultra HD inspection, our standard RGB, which is just standard video, you can actually pick up all these hail impacts all around here. We were able to pick up. Now as you're walking around, any roofing construction company is going to tell you, yeah, we could get up there and we can see those, but we can do it without you going up there, and we get a broad view. We get a bird's eye view of it. You can actually grid out those areas and tell exactly how many impacts there are per square foot. So when they're doing an insurance investigation, we can actually tell exactly how many impacts there are, and then see when you bring in the thermal image how many of those impacts made it to the sublayers, actually caused damage. And that's what you're seeing here. Those same areas where there were impacts, we can see how many of them actually impacted hard enough to cause damage like this here. So now you're seeing this is, again, where water sits the most is actually not where the most damage is. The most damage is actually coming off of this flashing over here, and it's working its way all along this edge, but it has spread all the way out to here. A third of this roof is actually damaged, and it's more than likely damaged so far that it's leaking inside somewhere. Now, whether they've noticed that and it's come through all of the insulation and ceiling layers and all of that yet. You never know. But had they been doing routine inspections like we keep pushing for all areas, they would have caught these problems when they were right here next to an HVAC unit or whatever. Sorry, I gotta shut my messages off when I'm doing the screenshots. So you can actually, you would catch these problems when they're just right here, right up alongside, and it would be a repair. It would be a basic repair instead of waiting years until a severe storm comes and a roofing construction company hires us to come out and inspect for them. If you had us doing yearly inspections and we were coming out, we use a custom process to fly over these buildings. We use a custom process to come out and scan over these buildings, and whether it's a school, hospital, small commercial building like a bank or something like that. A lot of times we actually do condos, an entire set of 100 condos, and we can fly over those and catch yearly or biannual inspections and tell you if there's any damage up there. Instead of waiting until it gets this bad where it's no question it's going to be a full tear off, instead you could have had a $5,000 repair. Just one time of that in 10 years, and you could pay for the entire 10 years of our inspections of your entire facilities, buildings, and grounds. So, but we wanted to show you what it looks like when we go through and do our post scan. So the most important part by far is to have a competent, experienced thermographer on site, somebody with at least 5-6 years of thermal experience, so that when your pilot is flying, and that might even be the same person, but when they're flying, they actually know what to look for and what they're seeing. Now, if you don't understand construction and you don't understand roofing, how it's built, how it's engineered, the different layers, everything, there's no way you can possibly know what to look for. So we push that all the time. That going out and buying a thermal imager or buying a drone does not mean you'll be able to do the work. So here's another one, and this is the same two sections we were seeing before, and we're going to mainly focus in here. And I want to show you the difference. All thermal imaging is done on a scale of black to white. So the greatest amount of color difference is between black and white. So what they do inside the thermal imager in the software is if you put in a different color palette, all it's doing is associating that shade of gray with a color. So that's why they can have 20 different color palettes that say instead of white, this shade of white is actually going to be green, and this shade of black is actually going to be, so then they associate a number to it, kind of the same way photography is done. But anyway, not to get too far off track. Now we're going to bring in the thermal image on this one, and this is going to be a different color palette just to show it in a different way. And every client likes to see it in a different way. So when you every client you work with, you want to find out what works best for them. As we come in here, you're going to see that actually where this roof layer runs up the wall, we were at a slightly different angle when we did this thermal image, so you're going to see it a little bit larger there. But as we bring it in, now you can see the differences. All right, so right here, there's no damage. A visual inspection would show nothing there. A visual inspection would show nothing here, and nothing out here. You'd show these water areas and you'd show some hail impacts if that's what you were looking for, but they wouldn't show any damage where the damage actually is. So one of our worst areas is right here, and you can tell that this is a low point in the roof, and it's actually pooling and collecting here. Now another little trick is this was the southwest side of the building, and it was right after sundown. So the sun was coming from this angle right here. If you can see my mouse, the sun was coming in from this side. So the water and moisture trapped underneath the surface right here, it's actually being blocked by this HVAC unit right here, because there was a lot of moisture built up right there. It actually got heated by the sun, and it stays warm longer than the dry area around it. So uh, more things as far as understanding thermal imaging, understanding the environment that you're working in, how important it is to understand the layers of this construction. So as we bring this in, here's another reason a standard inspection walking around up here, not only is it dangerous and time consuming, so it's going to cost more, you're also never going to find any of these areas. The only way these areas would be found is to tear this off or to do an actual partial tear off and investigate beneath. And the only reason they would do that is if water was already in the interior of the building. So instead, you have a company like AIT fly over who knows construction, knows engineering, and knows maintenance, and we come in and we fly these areas, and we know how to set up the thermal sensors and which ones to use and how to fly these so we can locate things like these hail impacts. These are hail impacts that have actually gone through the surface layer and damaged the subsurface. That's what you're looking for when you're trying to get an insurance claim approved. So not only these tin, but you want to know where it impacted and caused holes or tears in the surface layer. Now, it might be because that surface layer was 20 years old, but no matter what, it may have lasted another 5 years had it not been impacted the way it was. The other thing is obviously you want to locate these problems before they get inside. The further it moves to the interior of the building, the more damage and the more cost you have, and the more repairs you're going to have. So now you've got insulation and you've got ceiling tile and you've got mold and mildew, all these things, possibly rusted pipes, instead of locating these issues early on a preventive maintenance inspection. So I try to cover all these areas when we talk about it because we have clients in all areas. For roofing and construction, the obvious case is to be made for safety, efficiency, and cost effectiveness. They don't have to get on these roofs. I mean, if they were to walk in this area here, there's a possibility they could fall through a roof. I mean, if the damage is that severe and it goes that deep, if they stepped in the right section where there was no structural support beneath it, they could easily fall through. Why go into an area that you know is damaged and old and to inspect when you can have a company like AIT come out and for a fraction of your overall commission, you can have us scan the entire thing, give you a full report, and have it be in depth and known to be accurate. It just doesn't make any sense financially or safety or efficiency wise. It just doesn't make any sense not to. As far as building owners and facility management and engineering teams, there's no reason not to have a company like AIT. Obviously, we want you to have AIT specifically, but to have AIT come out there and scan these buildings on a biannual basis right after winter or storms especially, and right before, so twice a year, 6 months apart, you locate problems like this, where this probably was flashing that started to pull away, or leak around one of these vent pipes that started to leak in. As soon as it separated that surface layer, it made it easier and easier for it to get worse and worse. And then every time a big storm happened, a tree branch fell, anything like that, it was already damaged and compromised. So it made it easier and easier for water to infiltrate. So like and subscribe to our channel and share these videos with everyone you talk to, because thanks for joining us and stay tuned for following videos.